In Green Liberty, we've been working with climate policy for quite some time and been following the developments also of the climate law now under construction, if we can say so. But I will start with maybe briefly describing where we are and then giving some ideas of where we should be going. Latvia recently has joined the kind of club of the most ambitious European member states pushing for higher climate targets, and that's been announced last year in the Sibiu's declaration. Also, Latvia joining this. I think the main argument, also what the Prime Minister has said, is that Latvia is fully dependent on fossil fuels from other countries. So decreasing this dependency and going to more renewables, more energy efficiency is just a rational kind of economic choice. Also, similarly to what we heard before from UK, this has become the economic question. It's not just a moral question or the ecological or environmental question. It's very much economic discussion of losers and winners, and I think we can also clearly see this this here in Latvia. If we look at some of the numbers, how the emissions have changed in Latvia, some of the elements which I want to stress here in this picture is 1995. We already experienced climate neutrality. Industrial emissions after the collapse of Soviet Union significantly decreased. Our forests worked as a significant carbon sink, absorbing the CO2 emissions. In Latvia, half of the territory is covered by forests, so it's a very important resource. But of course, that's in the 90s. It was not a planned action. It was just an accident or the result of the collapsed economic activity, and also was linked very much to the a lot of social problems and increasing inequality and poverty and so on. So we don't want to repeat this kind of scenario. So that's why I think that's why it's very important that we are planning now very much ahead and looking for possibilities how we can actually benefit from moving to this climate neutrality in 2050. So if you look at the business as usual scenario, our emissions are keep increasing until 2030 and then slightly decreasing. So we have to significantly change our approach, how we deal with the economic activities. Maybe also some more differences from other countries. Latvia's energy sector is rather green if we compare to other countries. We are not coal dependent like our neighbor, for example, in Estonia or some other European countries. The power is produced very much from hydro. Of course, we don't really have developed renewable energy sectors which are wind or solar, but the old traditional hydropower is still there and producing. We are also using a lot of biomass for heating. So energy sector is not the main emission source. But some of the challenging sectors are transport, for example, which if we compare to the last decades, we haven't really managed to decrease the transport-related emissions. Private cars are more than half of the CO2 emissions in the transport sector, and people are more and more switching to the private cars from the public transportation, which of course don't really help. So there is a significant changes needed in the transportation sector, and it's not just the technical changes. We are not expecting that some new buses will solve this problem. It's also a lot of social, psychological questions which are about the status symbol of the car in society and so which have to be changed. Another problematic sector is agriculture, where emissions are also stable and not really decreasing. as well as land use change. And in the 90s until 2005, the land use change, we had a kind of positive effect on climate change because our land worked as a carbon sink. But now that's been changing, and we are seeing land use change emissions. And this of course is a negative trend, because then we don't have this buffer on how we can actually decrease the emissions. So some of these sectors are rather challenging to decrease the emissions, and we need fast and clear action here. So on a way forward, I think there is it should be clear that there is no room for new fossil fuel related infrastructure, gas pipelines, gas or oil terminals, also waste incineration plants which are dependent on plastic incineration. All these, if we are building such infrastructure now, that will be stranded assets, because in a longer term we will have to get away from this kind of infrastructure if we want to reach 2050 climate neutrality. We also have to start thinking how we can actually reduce our dependency on fossil fuels, both in energy sector from natural gas, how we can move away from natural gas, and also how we can move away in the transport sector from the fossil fuels. And this is also rather clear that government is will not be able to buy the electric cars for all the people, or subsidize this. People will not have budget because electric cars are also more expensive. Now we are dependent on 10 years old cars from the Western Europe. So there is a real need for changes in how we look at the transportation and mobility, and I think we have to start thinking and discussing these future trends in transportation right now. Also, renewable energies have attracted a lot of criticism, both from nature conservation organizations in terms of, for example, wind energy and biomass use. So we need also clear discussion here on how we support and what is real sustainable renewable energy sources. And one more point which I think is very important. There is a need for clear public engagement and involvement in climate policy design, and not to design the policy which actually pushes people in a corner, if you can say so. For example, the French example with the yellow vest, when government was designing new policies to decrease the transportation emissions, but it didn't really provide kind of a way for people to switch to something more sustainable, something more climate friendly. And I think in Latvia it's even more important because of the income and also climate inequality in society. So we cannot afford to have climate change policy which increases inequality. And that's why public engagement, I think, is very important throughout the design of these kind of policies. We are now planning to work together with Manabals, My Voice, that's a kind of online platform for public engagement, to design the climate, to get more people involved in designing of the climate law as well as other climate policies, and I hope that will change. Government is also now designing the new recovery and resiliency plan for Latvia, which actually was rather a poor example of public engagement. It's not just NGOs or civil society complaining, it's also trade unions and businesses who are not involved. So I think we cannot really afford that kind of approach to climate policy, and we need more public involvement. Yeah, just to end, we have seen several times in our this short Latvia's history since the independence on how we can decrease the emissions, and I think yeah, we have to look forward and really plan ahead for the future climate policies and deal with energy poverty and income inequalities parallel to the climate issues. I think these different policy streams are possible to be combined and to join together. Thank you. That's from my side.